threat mainly were poaching when we came. Turtles were poached every night. Nests were emptied of the eggs. There was a big market. Also for the shell. So turtles were killed for shells. Then the law, international law, banned export of turtle shell products. Therefore, that was abandoned. This is when we began to find shells, beautiful shells, abandoned on the beach because they were not sellable anymore. They were not producing money.
There will be always poachers, always people that couldn't care less. But we find that children, even adults, they are more aware of how they affect the environment. It's rewarding to work with animals and with children because we get a response. When we arrived, there were only few nests in the main nesting area, in Petit Carriacou. We find out after a few years there were turtles actually caught by fishermen. So we start also buying these turtles without any tag. We don't have any tag equipment, and release them, you know. And people were saying, "But what do you do with that?" I release it to the water. "Oh, so you don't keep it?" I said, "No, you buy it, you don't keep it." "No, we release it." So this was the first, what can I say, breaking of the rules, you know, where you buy things, you have to use it.
The paradigm.
You know? Yeah. Anyway, so we start with this, and then we find out about the...
Marvelous.
Yeah.
Marvelous.
Yeah. About the nesting events in Petit Carriacou. We started also to go there and to find out about the nesting turtles. But at the time we didn't have any tagging equipment. But
there was no white cast system yet.
No, in 2000 I was invited to a training program in Barbados, and they taught us the white cast protocols, how to monitoring the beaches, tagging, and we started in 2001.
And there were no sheets.
They
didn't have a computerized system. Say somebody's trying to do it, but it's difficult. It wouldn't work, you know, confused. So you need to put your own sheets and then send them whatever you can. So it kind of evolved together.
Yeah, we started. I remember only a few turtles there, and we were first myself and Dario going there, you know,
with the plastic over our heads when it rained, no hut, nothing. Yes.
And then at one point resting on the sand,
wet
and
sand,
then pretending to sleep, and then Dario was saying, "Marina, let's go home." I said, "No, we have to look for turtles." And of course they were not coming because there were only few. And so we've been to this training until we find progressively they start coming, you know, more and more.
Because of our presence, because there were less poachers.
We know that when they come because they were born on the same area, more or less, because then after 16 years of monitoring, we find out also with the tagging system, the white cast system, you know, we share the data. We find out that the turtles can come on the same beach where it was born, but can differentiate also the nesting, because we have turtles nesting in Barbados, they come to nest in Carriacou, then from Grenada, they nest in Grenada, they come nest in Carriacou, from Trinidad, from Union Island. So there is something going on. When they come, what we do on the beaches is very careful to let them nest, because our priority is not really collecting data, because it's conservation. So to make the turtle nest safely, producing babies. The new generation. Actually, researchers, scientists find out that this is the best way to conserve turtle population.
So turtles are the very unfortunate victims of a world gone crazy. It's not the world that's gone crazy. It's humans who are misbehaving.
Well, the first thing is global warming. They are born now more female than males because of the temperature. Of course, the sex is determined by the temperature. Hotter temperature produce more females. And then we'll have an imbalance, of course, in the mating process. The female, they couldn't find male to mate, and then we have no eggs. Of course, problems are on the beach with sand mining, this still occurs, and poaching.
Much of the poaching, at least in the main areas, in the main beaches, is prevented by our teams. Just their presence is enough to keep mostly illegal activities out.
Why is it necessary to protect their eggs? We tell the children, well, turtles eat jellyfish, especially leatherbacks, but all the turtles eat jellyfish. And jellyfish eats larval fish, especially tuna. So with less turtles on the ocean, we have more jellyfish and less fish. And then other reasons like hawksbills keeps the reefs healthy by eating the sponges, keeping the rocks clear for the corals to grow. First of all, when we see a turtle, just let them nest. And in some cases, even help them to nest, because we have some cases with turtles missing the rare flippers, one or maybe half. So we help them actually excavate the chamber, the nest chamber. Then we proceed to tag them and measure the carapace and count if they have barnacles, if they have any injuries, record all the data, and of course send it to the fishery department in Grenada and to White Cast Network.
Can we deal with a problem globally and then locally act where that is needed? That's what I would rather propose as a theme for solutions with youths, with volunteers, with professionals.
So we found more and more often that we need to relocate eggs because reduction of the space in the nesting beach of leatherbacks, because when the nest is close to the water, we are there to make sure that we do a relocation in a safer area. But those are the threats they're facing now.
Something else has been creeping up exponentially, which is plastics and pollution of the ocean. What was not really that vast a problem for the world, for the entire planet, for the oceans in the 90s, now it has exploded into entire gyres the size of whole countries. And this, of course, affects all creatures of the sea.
The fishing, the fishing of tuna, or they're using long line fishing or long line nets, and they catch many, many turtles, leatherbacks, not only turtles, but of course dolphins, seabirds.
All living creatures, but turtles are moving all the time. They get entangled in abandoned nets. Not only the nets that people pull up and then they are caught and they drown, but also the ones that are abandoned, because nobody cleans up this ocean. It's the dump of the world, of the entire planet.
Of course, the threat again is the poaching of the eggs, because these humans think they are aphrodisiacs. They are not. But it's a tradition, and in Carriacou, in Grenada, they're still doing it, and in other countries, of course. And this is one of the threats for the survival of the species.
If plastics continue to augment the way they have been doing until now, it's almost impossible not to get sick as a turtle, not to have your stomach clogged up by shreds of plastic bags, billions of plastic bags.
We should have total ban of hunting sea turtles for conservation reasons, because they are critically endangered species. Also because there is another issue about sea turtles and eating sea turtles, because the large creatures in the sea are polluted with heavy metals, mercury, cadmium, lead, so it's not a good source of food for human consumption.
That's very important, because yes, we can save 10 turtles, we can save 100 turtles, now maybe 500 turtles, But that still doesn't save the ocean. So it's like giving me oxygen, but the entire Earth, air, space is polluted.
Then, of course, we have habitat conservation. Not only the species conservation, but the habitat species conservation. And since the main nesting beach in Carriacou is a wetland area with the most developed mangroves in the Grenadines.
Here we found there's a lot to do, in particular Carriacou. And why here? This is one of the remaining small enclaves of mangrove forest, which is very good quality. It's a great ecosystem. In between coral sand, there's a reef, not in very good shape, but it's there. There is mud, there is the rainfall filling the flats. So this formed in hundreds of thousands of years, and now it has a very important function for the north of the island and for the lagoon of the eastern side of Carriacou.
We know that also hawksbills like to nest among the mangroves area, so it's a habitat for nesting turtles. Green turtles trim the seagrass beds to keep a good shelter for other creatures. It's a bit like mangroves. Just when there is big waves come, seagrass bed just function as a barrier. And also mangroves are important because they filter the sediments from the land to the water. They keep the reefs and coastal area clean, and at the same time they protect the coastline. So that's the importance of restore the mangrove. Not only a habitat restoration for turtles, but also for humans and for the land.
The resilience of the red mangroves should actually really help this whole north of the island from coastal destruction, which is obvious all the way in the south. No mangroves, no corals. It's just gone. The mud flows through here, but it's overly rich. When it reaches the water, it chokes the corals. So the mud is stopped coming from the mountain and from the hills, and at the same time, the sea cannot really pass because the mangroves actually retain the soil and the sand so much, so well, that they diminish and break up the strength of the forthcoming seas. What type of mangroves do we plant? There are three major types. The red, which could also grow in salt water. The black, slightly higher up the berm, which can tolerate salt quite a bit, but would not want to be completely exposed to the rough seas. And then you have the white, which is slightly higher, maybe at least 2 feet higher than water level, which you find closer to the hills. All of these form the bulk of an ecosystem based on trees that somehow live very close to an uneasy habitat, the sea. There's a host of crabs, of different mud crabs, large and small, that love to bite the young propagules. 30% of the young trees would perish or be endangered, weakened, because of the bites that crabs inflict on them. One could say, oh well, then get rid of the crabs. No, because the crabs are also helping the mangroves and everything else by all the holes that you can see. All these holes, hundreds of holes, look, everywhere. See, these holes are very important. They fill up with rainwater, with dew. This is the catchment that brings water in an anaerobic soil in the deep. That means trees can have their roots reaching where there is a source of water, fresh water. That water comes because of crabs. So all these trees have figured out their way of circumventing the big problem of how to find oxygen, how to find fresh water, how to get rid of the salt that is in excess when they imbibe whatever water there is. How do we handle this then? Here it is. We get some bamboo, about 5 or more inches across. This is used bamboo. So it is old bamboo. We cut the segments. We put it in the soil where the propagule, you can see, 1, 2. So what do? We encase them to protect them from the crabs' attacks. Does that work? Well, apparently, yes. It has been a successful experiment. Why use bamboo? We used PVC, but that's plastic. Let's bring in plastic in a natural environment. Well, bamboo grows
by the thousands, and of course, before they die, they become this. You see, we place it in. If you see inside, there's already water. Then we cover it, we fill it properly that it's not moved, and this also protects it from cows and cattle. Then we have the propagule with roots. We fill it with promix soil. This is to enhance the growth.
Just short of 4 hours, we've planted about 100 mangroves in these bamboo shoots. There's still about 200 mangroves to be planted and another half of our supply of bamboo coverings to still use up. But we put in a lot of work today, and we'll continue to do so while I'm still here, and Dario and Kido Foundation will continue doing their amazing work in repopulating this area so that it's no longer a mud flat and will be a nice lush mangrove forest, preventing any damage from tropical storms and storm surges.
Any small thing, even though Carriacou is a small island, it has such a huge effect on the world, because one small change can lead to everything, because with those mangroves it's preventing so many things from happening, and that can have a beneficial effect. And just planting anything in general helps carbon monoxide in the atmosphere. So even though it's a small amount, for one couple to do all of that is extraordinary.
I've known them since around the age of 6. The first day when they came to my yard, they spoke to me like I was their age, and since from there I just told them that I wanted to come with them. I don't know, they have this way about them.
One thing I've always admired about them was their dedication. It's like they moved here 30 years ago on a boat, and they settled down, and they've been working with advocacy before anyone else was. They were working with turtles before anyone else was.
All the hatchlings we have releasing in this island is because of the efforts of the 2 directors.
We're living in their home, so that upon itself is humbling. And for them to welcome us to live there, and while we're working there, it shows a true testimony to who they are.
If they were not here, they will be poaching, they will be like taking the turtles, and nobody will say, oh, you don't do this. The nests we are releasing now, if nobody has been like looking every day, every night the beach, they will not be there, because people eat the eggs, no?
I always found it extremely interesting that Marina and Dario told me when they first began there were no research techniques, no conservation methods, and they pretty much did everything based off of the love of the animals. They saw that sea turtle nests and sea turtles were being hunted and poached for the meat, for the eggs, and they just started up their own program and method of trying to figure out how to protect them.
When we come across a track, generally if there's just an up track and the turtle is still there, we'll follow the track and we just kind of check to see what stage she's at. So if she's still body pitting, we take off our lights and we kind of hang back because we don't want to disturb her or spook her, so she goes back to the ocean. If she's already digging, then we can just kind of wait for her to start laying, because when they lay they go into sort of a trance, so it's easier to work with them and to touch them and measure them. So once she's laying and she's kind of in a trance, we take curved and straight carapace measurements, so just to see how big she is. We check if she has flipper tags. If she doesn't, we prepare to tag her, but we wait until after she finishes laying to actually put in the tags. We check if she has barnacles, we count them, we check for injuries or any other thing to note.
Seeing the hatchlings go out to sea, knowing that yourself and Leo saw some of the turtles laying the eggs, and then for those hatchlings to be released at the end of the season.
Okay, the first time I saw one nesting, it's like it could have been around 8 or so. I can't explain the experience, but it's like if you're a person and you're feeling empty, seeing something like that would just fill you up. It was a leatherback, and my first time I got to see a leatherback. That was exciting.
When you see one leatherback in the real life, it really impacts you, because it's just amazing. It's like seeing the dinosaurs. It's just amazing experience, and you feel something very, very deep in you when you see this kind of animals.
So my first hatchlings were 16 years ago on the beach in Kido Bay. So I was a child, and there were just so many of them, and they were small and they were adorable, and it was really amazing. My first hawksbill adult was my first night out on patrol here, and we came across a hawksbill and she was nesting, And it was just amazing to see, because all of my experience with leatherbacks are huge, right? And hawksbills, they're small, they're smaller, and their flippers are so disproportionately small. And they have so many barnacles, and they're just hard shelled, and the patterns on their shells are really interesting. So it was just really fulfilling to see one, because I felt like it's come full circle for me.
We had leatherbacks come up with either scratches on its back. We had one with a bite mark on the flipper. Some people would spitefully harm them. If more people knew about it, then more people would be willing to help. Because some people just do it for the fun, just kill the turtle for the fun or something like that. And as well, if they knew the dangers of eating the turtle meat, they need to be more educated on this kind of stuff.
The Kido Foundation does so much. They have a sea turtle conservation project, they do mangrove restoration, they do a bird sanctuary and education program. They are constantly working with the local community and children, doing beach cleanups, doing educational awareness events that are trying to show the world that there's not always just one way of doing something.
You can take these things and apply them into different opportunities back home, whether it be school or volunteer or just your own family. One person hears your experience and might be impacted by something you say.
I'd like to say to Dario and Marina that they should never stop. They just inspire me so much in everything they do. They are fighters. They never give up. They always go for what they want, and that is what they motivated me to do. So that I am the person I am today because of them.
You can see like it's not just staff, it's like a family, no? I said really, wow, this is different than other projects. You actually start living like this, very present. So when you came here, you can see them. They are also living by the day, but they have a purpose. So this makes things different. Like you are giving your life to something that you really love.
I would say for volunteers just to come with an open mind. Each and every day is something new and different. Every single night you're not going to get a turtle, but you might end up getting the turtle that needs you the most. You'll end up making the difference in that turtle's life, or that turtle might end up making a difference in your life.
Yeah, I would 100% recommend the project. Come, please. The turtles need you.
We are still trying to make this go. That's exactly the urge. It is not working for the children. We have an environmental message. We care for the animals. So none of that. We work with the children.
Every time you do something, you have to think 7 generations ahead. What could be the cause of your action now? Always we think ourselves like separate things, and then when we do what we want to do is only affect a small portion of our surrounding. No, it affects many more creatures, many more aspects of our lives.
We try to come to live in the now, and we perform like aliens who happen to be on a planet we don't understand. So we say, through the contact with nature, we feel that we can draw all the principles that we are lacking in human society today. As you can see, this is one of the nature trails, and it goes into nowhere. Look, everything is destruction. This is a dead forest. We hope that 20, 30 years from now, the trail will be there, and it won't be concrete, and there will be trees way above our heads.
So the classroom, they found out one of the main causes of the pollution is fossil fuel. They didn't know anything about it. They found out browsing the internet. They find out also the solution they may find out through the internet to the local reality. This happened during Saturdays, and during the Sundays we bring it for field trips in Carriacou. And they found out exactly what we discussed during the classroom. They find that in reality the pollution is really there. So when we brought it to the main nesting beach in Carriacou, they find out it's covered with plastic. And then they were appalled. They said, oh, where did those come from? So we try to make them think about practical solutions that they can be adopted locally. And they come up with beautiful things. They came up with the idea to building a boat with plastic bottles. And we did it. a small catamaran. We did it, and Dario sailed from here to town during regatta with this boat built by children. And then also they started the project of sewing tote bags from discarded materials. First of all, to reduce the amount of plastic or solid waste in the island. And second, to promote the use of this bag instead of using the single-use plastic bags when you do groceries. So we started with children.
This is why, with children, we thought this is the right tree. These are the fruit bearers, because we already see the fruits through all the mediums that we deal with. Puppet shows, writing, meetings, sitting around, GoPro.
And we started in Carriacou, kids with cameras in Carriacou, and we found out that actually children with the camera, they were more focused on nature, wildlife. They will find young males, 11, 10 years old, just focus on photographs a butterfly or a flower. Yeah. And without the camera, I'm sure they would never see it, or maybe, go there and then smash it. Usually they tend to do that. But with the camera, we find out they are really focused and they are interested to know more. What happened with the cameras happened with binoculars, with the children. Totally interested to find out which bird it is, what it look like, or is that one I said. So when they see the bird again, they will not, hopefully, throw stones or kill it because they saw it. They develop an interest to the animal.
There are sometimes geniuses, they're marvelous kids who surprise themselves and us all the time.
We have a project for birds. We're talking about this area with mangroves. And then the same area is bird sanctuary. Migratory birds, resident birds. One of the most famous is the whimbrels. We found that it is migrating from Alaska to South America, and Carriacou is one of the stopover. So they need this kind of oasis to rest and feed and to probably they nest. We didn't find any nest yet of whimbrel, but
Your birdhouses are hopefully going to come into play.
the birdhouses, hopefully they
That's
can
a long
be.
shot.
We'll not ask for rent for free, so you're welcome to come.
These are going to go to some of the schools. We already placed 9 in the main school. So all over the island, the children and the students actually agreed, and they want to place one of their creations for a bird or a family of birds to nest. Different types for different birds. These will be hanging by huge trees in the bird sanctuary. So this is to give more homes even to blackbirds and so on, so that the community of island birds get closer to the migratory birds. It enriches the whole place. Instead of saying that the migratory bird lands there and it's like a desert, a little saline thing, they catch a couple of crabs and they say, well, let's go off to South America. They actually find a whole community of birds. This is how it must have been before. There are birds that when we put a couple of leaves, palm leaves, stuck together at the blind, that's where all the kids come, all the visitors come to watch birds.
So we find out a mockingbird choose the spot to build a nest. We find twice eggs and they hatch. So already we provide some nesting. We're talking about this area with exploring with mangroves, birds and turtles, and of course then other creatures are there, crabs are there, opossums are there, web of life is there. So the important thing is that we like children to learn to respect this web of life, not see the mangroves are separate or birds are separate, but all interconnected.
Many locals said, yes, my grandma always talked about the jumbie bird. So the barn owls were here. And of course, they're keeping the population of rats down. The other one is the snake, the boa constrictor, the tree boa, the multicolored, the one that doesn't have a chromosome for color. So it can be red, it can be blue, it can be spotted, it can be whitish, brown. Well, that's also a hated creature. That's as hated as the owl and so on. But that's necessary. Now we're beginning to have it so that people call us when there's one on their tree and they feel very uncomfortable. They don't just cut it to pieces. So this is important. It's beginning to change, but we need to be steady and not just do a one-off. We calculated how many kids were involved with Kido in 2017. Over 130. So 130, that's a school. So it's an informal education out of the curriculum because the curriculum doesn't talk about environment and wildlife and the importance of natural places to be protected. So all of this has a role. This is really important. Not it's important who does it, it's important to do it. That's the difference.
Internet is already the way. Through individual donors, through your profile, you can do better. Never take now as now. Now is a moving step. Do not keep your project back because you don't have. You move and you will create the ways for it. Just do what you want to do and how you want to do it. Don't worry about the money. The money is the last thing. You look for the money and you'll find it.
Because it's necessary to do it.
One of the directors and founders of Kido Foundation. We've been here about 28 years now. Sailed with our catamaran from England to different places, Africa, and then here.
So, Marina Fastigi, PhD in political science. That's how you end up here. Well, by chance, because I met this guy. Then he said, I have something to tell you. We have project. We're gonna be around the world with the boat. And I said, yes, but I have one condition.
I didn't know her. I've known her for a few days. You know. So she said, okay. Then we did.
And then he said, okay, no problem. You can bring your cat with you.
And there were no boats. It was from zero, from scratch. We were freaks, but that was the time to be freaks. Most of us have gifts in creative arts, music and this and that. Of course, we produced art forms. So one was musical concerts with keyboard, bass, guitar, flutes, singing, and then drawings, then cartoons, then painting, poems, writing. And this was already aimed at young people because wherever we stopped with several boats, we would sort of go immediately into the education departments and say, we've got something, would you like to bring your school kids to us? That's when we came, and the neighbors here, where we were for a couple of days with the birds, said, oh, go over there, there's a place, it's for sale, lovely place. It was grown with trees all over the place, you can imagine, and so on. Marina, what about stopping going around the world? Put the catamaran out here, and we buy a piece of land and we do a center here. And she said, yes, but only at one condition. Do you remember the conditions? This time I did not open my mouth. And she said that we make a school. We are still trying to make the school.
The mission is just people are part of nature and we cannot be disconnected. When we do that, we create a lot of damage not only to nature but to ourselves. We would like especially the children to understand that they are interconnected with any other species.
This is why we are here. We do this with the local communities, participation of the kids, the schools, the very good teachers now are really joining in. And of course, foreign volunteers come for the turtles because this place has mangroves. It has wild birds, migrant birds from the north going to South America. And then we have turtles. We have different species of turtle that keep on coming to nest as they have done for thousands of years.
The social and the environmental must now come together. And now is already late.